Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hi, welcome to the Persistence Payoff Show. I'm your host, Kimberly SCHAFER. We're here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm very excited about this episode today. I'm on my own journey with persistence, and I am so enjoying talking with people and learning about that quality. I have a second career and my next chapter as a first-time inventor and entrepreneur. I'm the inventor of the Ring Thing, which is a waterproof patented ring holder that I invented, and I've brought it to market and learning a lot about persistence in every avenue. It's been a terrific journey. I'm finding that persistence can show up for us in different ways throughout our lives. And so some of the things that really interest me about persistence are that as children, we have to be persistent. If we're learning to ride a bicycle or learn our ABCs or the multiplication tables, we have to persist and continue until we get it. And we have this childlike wonder about it. And then kind of as we get older, self-doubt creeps in, right? It's like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Oh, it's not really for me. What I'm finding is that that quality of childlike wonder and curiosity can be with us at any age throughout our lives. And that's what helps us reinvent ourselves. And that's partly why I'm very excited to talk with our guest today, because she's also on her next chapter and a whole new journey. Sparling is an international opera and sacred music singer. She's now retired and lives in the upper Midwest, and she teaches voice lessons. And very impressively, she's a first-time author. She has written a spy novel and a spy thriller, actually, and I'm really excited to hear about it. So please help me welcome Sparling. Hi, Kay.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to talk with you and hear about your journey. So I'd like to start by just going back with your singing career, because I think being an opera singer and sacred music is really a fascinating journey. And so I'm curious to know, how did you start singing, when, and why?
Yeah. Your title, has persistence in it. And I love that title, because now as a professor and a high school teacher, I'm always preaching that word every day: persistence, persistence, persistence. If you get knocked down, dust yourself off, get back up and keep going. So I guess my singing career had like three folds to it. I started as a professional singer at the age of 7. I did Broadway musicals. And, when I was a child, obviously they handpicked you and they trained you and you learned your roles. And then by the time I was in high school, I had to do a lot more studying of that. And it became, at that age, a lot more competitive. And then, of course, college, and after college, it just kept getting worse and worse. And, one has to audition a great deal in order to just get one solo, contract. And I'm speaking about musical theater right now. And then I also was doing a lot of sacred singing. And as I got older, that became more competitive. And you had to have more training in that as well. And so at each level, one had to keep upping the training, and then, of course, putting themselves out into a bigger pool of competition. And then I stopped all that and started training for opera. That was very, very challenging. Most graduate students in opera, they don't make it through the program. A lot of them don't. And it's a very, very difficult time because you're treated like a pro, but you don't know how to be a pro. And you don't quite have that training yet. So it takes a lot of self-discipline to keep yourself in those programs. And then they send you to an opera. You have to do 2 opera apprentices. I did mine internationally, and then the same thing goes. And they just keeps weeding out. And then they put you in competitions where you have to beat out 5,000 sopranos to become a finalist, and that's worldwide. And so it's the same things that you keep doing. It just the pool gets bigger. And the only thing that kept me going is one of my teachers gave me a poem, Don't Quit. And I used to carry that with me everywhere.
Wow. That's actually great advice. It's simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to implement, right? So during that time, like I'm curious to know, as you were going through all those auditions and learning through that whole process, what was your inner self-talk to keep yourself going and to keep yourself persisting? Like what was your what did you tell yourself?
Well, I
to
had to
keep
learn
going
that
through
along
that?
the way. I had it. I had it from the outside, all my coaches and my family and all, but how I learned to have that self-discipline inside me and that self-confidence was just simply by failing a lot. And that's what really that's what proves to you that you really want it, when you keep going, when you're failing a lot. And then that's also what builds self-confidence when you finally get something. And I'll just give one example. After I was finished with my apprenticeship, I went over to Europe and I was trying to get a European opera agent. And I was doing at least one a day, sometimes 2 auditions a day. And this was all over, Western Europe. And at one point I had a small storage room in the apartment I was renting. And I had, this is where, before emails and all those, they would send you a typed letter, and mine were rejection letters. And so I plastered the walls with my rejection letters. And I'd go in there and look at it and go, can I go do one more? Yeah, I can do one more, because one of these is not going to be a rejection. And finally that became true, and then that built my confidence that I got through that. That was one of the most rejected times I ever had in my career.
Yeah. Wow. What a great lessons in persistence and resilience through all of that. And so as an instructor, and as you're teaching in the graduate program, how did you impart that to your students to transfer that information to them?
I've been really honest with the students who are really going for a professional career, whether it be in musical theater, Broadway, or in opera, because I've done both. I'm not a Pollyanna. I tell it like it is. I'm going to say, you're going to love this part of it. You're going to hate this part of it. And the auditions and competitions are probably the most thing that most folks don't like. Because, you're being judged. You're not just getting to perform, you're being judged. But in order to get on the stage and sing that role, you have to audition until they get to know you. And so I just always tell them, grow a really thick skin. So no matter what is told you in those auditions, even if they tell you to go sell shoes, just remember that's one person's opinion. Be polite and just say, well, that's your point of view, and walk out. And that way you have protected yourself. You're building that thick skin, and then you've got comebacks. And usually they work. And I think that it's important to know what you're getting into if this is what you want to do for a career. So I do tell them the truth, but then I also build them up, and get them ready. And so they've got a really good chance at some time, someone saying yes, whether it's a competition or an audition. They just have to keep going. One of my first teachers, I used to ride the train up to Chicago, and when I was in high school, she was an older retired opera singer. She had actually sang during World War II in Germany. She was a German immigrant, and they would have operas going on. They'd have to stop and go into the basement, bomb shelter. She had great stories. But one thing she told me when I was leaving for college is, be like a piece of gum. Just stick it on the wall and stay there and just keep going. So she was one of those teachers too that told you like it was. Like, this is going to be you don't even know how hard this is going to be. But if you really want it, you have the stuff. You just have to keep learning and keep trying.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Those are such great points and such really great advice. I think it's going to stick in my head to say, just be the gum. I think that's a great
Exactly.
mantra.
Very simple, but
Be the gum.
and that poem, that my mom gave me a gazillion years ago, Don't Quit. I had to keep making different copies because they would get so frayed and all. And they don't even know who wrote that. But you can Google it. It comes up right away. Read that poem. That's some, it's a little corny, but I mean, it's really true. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I will. I'm going to look that up because I think it's so, all of us in so many moments in our lives have this decision tree where we can choose to give up or we can choose to persist, and what guides us to persisting. And, and sometimes it's things like that, it's a poem that sticks with us. So I think that's very powerful. I do have one music question. So when you discuss sacred music, is that religious music, or what is sacred music as opposed to standard opera?
Well, so, I said I started singing at the age of 7. So at first it was just, I grew up in Springfield, Illinois, and, everyone knew about this little professional singer. So, oh, I'd like her to sing at a special mass, or I want to sing at my mom's funeral, or I want her to sing at, weddings, of course, lots of weddings. And so that was what I did at first, and in all kinds of churches, Protestant, Catholic, even a couple Jewish synagogues. And so then I continued that throughout when I was a Broadway singer. And it's just another way to be employed. When you're a professional singer, if you're in a large city, most churches will hire a /soloist / choir section leader, kind of thing. So all the way through graduate school, I did that because it was a lot more fun to sing at a church than, wait on tables or something, so why not? And so, but then as an opera singer, sacred music means a little something different. And opera and oratorio are both things we're trained in. The difference is opera is what you know of, with the set and costumes and a story, and it's usually not a biblical story. But oratorios, they don't have costumes, they don't have sets, they still have a big chorus, they still have soloists, they still have an orchestra, but all the text is written from the Bible. So the most popular one I can cite for you is at Christmas time, Handel's Messiah. That's oratorio. So that's considered classical sacred music. And I did that even when I first got to New York. I worked in the New York diocese. And then, of course, when I got trained and went over to Europe, I was still asked to do that. And then, interesting enough, when I returned and started living in New York again, 9/11 happened, and I was asked to do many of those masses and memorial masses for the fallen first responders. And so that's when that background really came in handy, because those funerals were 3 times longer than a regular funeral mass and had thousands and thousands of people attending. So they really had to have a trained singer that voice could hold out, and then also, deal with that kind of pressure. So it's been about half and half with the opera and the sacred. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you for that. And also really kudos to you for performing at those memorial services. That must have been very tough, in many ways. So
toughest job I ever had. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. Yeah. So thank you for doing that. That's, I'm sure you comforted a lot of people.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I'm happy to serve. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it was a very mystical time for a lot of us. A lot of very, someday I might write a book about my experiences singing at those, because some interesting things, spiritual things came about and were reported. And so, it was a hard time, but it was also a very inspirational time for all of us.
Yeah. That sounds like a fantastic book. I hope you do write that. I would love to read that. Yes. Talking about your writing, so you transitioned from opera and you retired and have written your first book, a spy thriller. And so I would love to know how that transition happened, and had you been writing kind of on the side along the way, or was this something totally new?
I was always reading since I was at least in high school, literature and pulp fiction and anything I get my hands on. Wanted to write a book, but I mean, my life has been so busy. But this book I picked because it started out as I was being treated for PTSD at a base. And the psychiatrist that was helping me, we were using art therapy, we were using music therapy, we were using aromatherapy, and he just thought, well, besides obviously, talk therapy, why don't you write these things that are haunting you down? And so I started from the beginning of what was bothering me, and I started writing them down. And he and his graduate student assistants were reading it, and all of them encouraged me. This should be a book. You should put this all in a book. This is true stuff. People need to know about this. A lot of people don't know about the Cold War. You need to put this down, and make it a whole book. And so at first I thought, oh, like I have that time to do that. But something about it drew to me. And so I tried. So I would work and then I would write at night. And the first time I wrote a whole 90,000 word book, I didn't know any better. And so then I thought, okay, Madison's nearby. I can find authors that will read this for me and tell me if it's even worth working on and continuing and pursuing. And so I did that, and well, they were really surprised I had written the whole book, but they read the whole book and gave me some places to go, some classes to take. And again, I was encouraged in those classes. My excerpts kept getting read, and at the end of the course, the professor asked if they could be a co-author. And I thought, well, I don't want to do that because it's my story, but I'll tell you what, that encouraged me. And I was very honored that he wanted to do that. But then I took a master class with James Patterson, and that kind of, that took my story from just like facts to a thriller, a suspense thriller, which is what it needs to be. And so I learned a lot from that. And then I had to put my book up on the shelf. My mother was living with me, and she was diagnosed with Lewy body, and I became her main caretaker. So I'd work and I'd have caretakers, and then when I come home, I was the caretaker. So I didn't touch the book again for a long time, for about 2 years. And then after she passed, wouldn't you know, COVID came, and that was like 6 months later. And I lost all my business. My whole school was shut down. And so I had to run and find what I would call a day job. And I was working on that, and I didn't like that job at all, but I had to live. And so I decided to really dive back in the book. And I was really lucky. A friend moved to town who is trained as a playwright and has done some screenwriting. So he said, oh, I can help you with this action thing. And so that was the 5th draft that I had that I finally turned in. I thought I really had something. And yeah, so that was another time when I had to be very self-disciplined and keep taking that off the shelf. And I did have encouragement, especially my partner. He just kept saying, hey, what about the book? That's all he'd say is, hey, what about that book?
Yeah, I can imagine. And is the book, you say it's based on your experience, and it's also a thriller. Would you describe it as an autobiography, or is it more of a novel with some true points written into it?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. A lot of people want to know if I'm Caitlin Stewart, and I'm not going to talk about that. But I will tell you, all the things in my book are true, and I saw a lot of them. I saw a lot of the scenes that are in the book. And everything is politically based in truth. The only changes are people's names, people's descriptions, and some of the locations. But what actually happened and why it happened are all verbatim truth. So it's kind of a strange thing. It is a novel based on truth because it's not nonfiction and it's not a memoir. It's not an autobiography. And I did that to protect people. And I feel like those people need to be protected. And yes, the statute of limitations is up, but yeah, those people also need to be protected.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Well, my feeling is that would make the book much more relatable, because I think that when you do something that's based, at least in part, on reality, that comes through and people can feel that when they're reading something. So I'm looking forward to reading it. And
yeah.
Can you tell us just in broad strokes what the book is about, and the thriller, the spy part and the thriller part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Caitlin Stewart's an American graduate student. She's really being a successful operatic soprano. And her school says, well, you should go out for some of these Fulbright grants and Rotary International grants and all these things. And so she does, and she gets them. And so she's all excited because she has landed an apprenticeship at the Vienna State Opera, very important opera house with some very important conductors and directors. And so she's just over the moon. And they tell her, well, we want you to work on your German before you really need to report there. So why don't you go the summer before? And we'll pay for everything. We'll send you to the Goethe Institute. And she was, okay, that's fine. 3 more months and you're free. That's great with her. So she's doing that. But as soon as she lands, within days, she realized that, because she's living real far out and she has to go all the way into the inner ring of Vienna with trolleys and she walks some of it and all, and she's being followed. interesting enough, all of them are males about her age. She's 29, and they're all Americans. And she knows that by their, identifying, like they're wearing a Yankees ball cap, and in 1988 they're wearing Nikes. Okay, Europeans didn't do that in those days. And so that just like screamed American, And so she's trying to figure out why these young men are following her, and they're usually the same ones. And so she kind of sets up a kind of a trap. And she's dating this one guy that she thinks is involved to the university. And, I'm studying for an MBA. Well, she goes there one day for lunch, and she finds out, A, they don't have a graduate program in that, and B, he is not a student there. And now she's like, okay, no, he's involved. And then she starts to leave the university, and this guy grabs her. One of the followers grabs her. And she gets away because she knows martial arts. And so she gets away. She kicks him really bad in the kneecap and runs. And right as she runs out of the building, she runs to this guy she's been dating. And he pretty much drags her into a tinted glass Mercedes and, apprehends her. And she's like, what the heck is going on? And there's these two guys up front, and they look really official. And the one man in the passenger seat turns around, and he says, well, hi, Caitlin. We'd like to talk to you about a possible job. Well, she's already got a job. She's an apprentice at the Vienna State Opera, and she's not supposed to take any other jobs. And she thinks that, they're talking about a singing job. Well, they say, well, we're going to go to the Sigmund Freud Park. We're going to talk about this. And, she knew she had no choice in this. They were going to take her and talk to her. But she did feel good. At least those two guys were American. The other guy was Dutch. And so get to the park. He buys crumbs, to feed the peacocks. And I'm going, I cannot believe I'm being apprehended, and he's stopping to get crumbs. We go way over to the side of the park and sit on some benches. And they basically say that they're CIA and they want to recruit me. They need a Mozart soprano, and they are absolutely in need of that. And that Caitlin's been vetted for 2 years now, and they think she's perfect for it. And, she thinks this is crazy. And she gets up and says, I don't want anything to do with this. She walks away. And then they say, well, what if you could help bring down the Berlin Wall? Well, that stops her in her tracks. And she turns around and she goes back because she's smart aleck. And she says, what am I going to do? Hit a high C? I mean, I'm just somebody from Paducah, Iowa, just an opera singer. What in the heck? I don't understand. And they said, well, we'll explain it to you. Well, she sits down and says, all right, start talking. And she agrees to it. And at first, she's just agreeing to being a high profile because she goes into the higher echelons of society. She's first hired as just an information gatherer, high profile information gatherer agent. Okay, she's the only woman on both teams. The CI is working on this, and the MI6 is working on this, and she's the only woman. This is 1988. So that's the beginning of the book.
Wow.
How she
amazing
gets in the CI.
You've already drawn me in. Like, now I want to know what happened. So I'm gonna read it. What a great setup. That's incredible. And I'm curious to know, when you first started writing the book, it sounds like it came partly through a therapeutic process of you just writing down some of the things that you had experienced personally. As you were working on the book, did you have the whole picture in mind, or did some of those parts just evolve as you were writing it, the parts that weren't based on anything that you had experienced?
Most of it is based on things that happened. Either I witnessed or I interviewed and someone else witnessed. The things that I witnessed, just so you know, this book, who the good guys are trying to help are refugees that have been let go by the USSR from all those Eastern European countries, and they are left with no infrastructure. It's basically anarchy. They have no food. They have no jobs. So they're gathering up what they can carry, and they're trying to run into the nearest Western countries. In that case, for a lot of them, it was Austria, and that's where I was. And so these huge refugee camps were being, tent after tent after tent were being erected outside of the city. And what some dirty Western businessmen in Austria, and some of them were politicians, they buddied up with the KGB in East Germany and said, hey, we can start a slave auction and use these people. East Germany was having a really bad economy at that point, and just like USSR, that's why they let them go. And so they're actually going to these camps, talking to people and saying, oh, get on a train and come to East Germany. We'll give you jobs. We'll give you housing. We'll give you health care. Everything will be dandy. And the truth is, they would take them somewhere in between that refugee camp and East Germany, some small village in the Alpines in the middle of the night, and they'd have these slave auctions, and they'd send all the children and the elderly people or the sickly people back to the refugee camp. And then they would auction off all the strong people to go to either work farms or, factories where they could not escape. They were not paid, and they were treated much like concentration camps. And then, unfortunately, for so many of the women, they were sold either to individual, East German men, or would be taken to the underground clubs, which were terrible, in East Berlin. And so I witnessed a lot of things that happened to particularly the women. And so that is why I had the PTSD. And, I saw some of those auctions and such. And, you'll read in my book, I'm pretty graphic at times because I want to get through to people what people that are human trafficked, what they go through.
Yeah. Wow. I'm so glad that you included that in your book. And first of all, I'm very sorry that you had to go through that. That I can see why you would have PTSD.
Nothing compared to what those people went through.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, trafficking people don't really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that human trafficking, people don't understand the breadth of it and how many people are trafficked. And as you said, definitely there is sex trafficking that goes on, a lot of it, but there's also what you described with the labor trafficking and the, forcing people, withholding their passports and forcing them to work in homes and factories. And people don't often realize that how broad human trafficking can be. So I'm very grateful that you're highlighting that and talking about it.
Yeah, in the very front of my book, you'll read the International Labor Organization says that 21 million people are being trafficked each day, right now, presently. That's worldwide. And I think what I'm trying to do with my book is just show awareness, because, you can say, oh yeah, that was at the end of the Cold War. Well, the problem's gotten a lot worse. You shut down one cartel and another one pops up. And, in order for people to help, they have to be aware, and they can't say, well, that's not my problem. That's not in my backyard. And I want to give one good example. I live in a very small college town in Wisconsin. It's 17,000 people. and we have a little local paper that goes out. And a few months ago, 7 men were arrested for underage prostitution and trafficking of underage girls right here in this town, this little town. Okay. It's everywhere, folks. So people need to be aware. And if they see something suspicious, they need to report it to their local police. There's also many, many 800 numbers you can call. They need to, if they meet someone that had that experience, try to help them, thank God they got out, and just be aware. And if you can, donate something to one of the organizations that helps. But this is terrible what happens to these people. And now the newest one that they're discovering is senior human trafficking, senior citizens.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I had not heard about that. That's horrifying, because senior citizens, well, everyone who's trafficked is vulnerable. Often senior citizens are also quite vulnerable. So, oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
I live in San Diego, and here in our county, it's an $800 million a year business. And because we're right on the border with Mexico, a lot of people think that it's women being trafficked over across from Mexico. And by and large, that's not true. Like close to 80% of people who are sex trafficked are Americans who are from San Diego. And so just in our area, that's $800 million a year. So it's a terrible business. And I'm really glad that you're talking about it. And do you have a copy of the book that you can hold up for us? And I'd love to see the cover of it.
Let me see if I can very quickly. Here it is. Here it is. Thought it was up there. So it's Mission Thaw.
Okay, great. I love the cover. It's really, it's very fitting.
I love it too. It's like her against the world, and there's Vienna in the background, and then this is the jagged ice. Thaw. Why it was called Mission Thaw is because it was going to thaw out the Cold War. It was the end of the Cold War. Yes. So if you think of that as ice, this is the melting point.
Yes. Well, in our last few minutes, I have just 2 additional questions. My first question is, do you have another book that's coming out? Do you see a sequel to this one, or a different book?
This is a series. It's going to be a trilogy. And so actually next month in August, I am taking a lot of time off and just holding up by myself and finishing the second book. The name of that is Mission Impromptu. And by then, she's no longer using opera as a cover, because it's set during the Bosnian War. And obviously they're not going to have any opera going on in a war zone. So her cover this time, but then she's been promoted a lot, and she's become a combat, agent as well as an information gatherer. So now she's kind of a boss, and her sidekick this time, instead of the MI6 James Bond guy, is an actual priest that came and reported to us. We had dealt with him in Vienna, and he comes to report to them and say, hey, I know that they're massacring people. It's ethnic cleansing. It's between the Serbian Muslims and the Muslims in Croatia and Bosnia. And so it's just like, are you kidding me? And then he tries to get people to help, and especially the Catholic Church, they're like, I don't know if we want to get involved. So he just goes AWOL. And so he is her sidekick, which is a great duo. Her and the priest. They clash a lot, but they get a lot done too. And so, basically she has to go AWOL because she finds out that they're seeing massacre after massacre. They're getting there too late, but they're basically reporting it. And then one time they hear that there's a whole camp of young boys, orphans, that they're going for. And so we have a chance to go get them. And then she is told, by her chief, absolutely not. You turn around and go back. You can't do that. So she goes rogue. And so that's the impromptu part of it. That book will be my favorite of the three. And then the third one set in, she goes back to New York and she's thinking about retiring from everything, opera and the CIA. And so she does, and then 9/11 happens and she gets that call and boom, she's right back in. And that's called Mission Homefront. So that would be the 3 books in this series.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I think it's so interesting and inspiring. And I also have tremendous admiration for you for taking this turn. Like, you had a very successful career in opera and you're doing something completely new. And it sounds like it's a great success. These are wonderful stories that you're telling. So thank you. And my last question, our time has flown by today, is can you please let us know how people can connect with you?
Yeah, the best and easiest way is, because honestly, I am such an old lady, I can't remember all the social media I'm on, but this is the way to do it. If you go to ksparlingbooks.com, my website go under media and it has all the links, and it has a lot of things I've been doing in media, podcasts, blogs, magazine articles, everything's there. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. So ksparlingbooks.com. There you go. Yeah, you can see all of them there.
Yeah, you've been really, this is so interesting. I went to your website earlier and was looking at some of those links. It's really amazing, everything you've done. So yeah, thank you for being here and inspiring us.
I've done that in 2 months.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. My publicist is going at it, man.
Well, when you take August off,
no, so
no, and maybe when you take August off,
I'm going to take 2.5 weeks. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes I do these daily now, so it's like, okay, getting used to it.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us. And I really look forward to reading your books. I think they sound really inspiring and interesting and intriguing. So, and good for you for doing your next chapter.
Well,
literally.
Hold on to your seat, because it's a it's a fast-paced thing. So hold on to your seat. A lot that happens to Caitlin, and you're going, oh no, is she going to make it through this? Well, we'll have to see.
Yes. I look forward to that.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
And good luck in your new endeavor as well. Okay. And read that poem, girl. Never quit.
I will. Yes. I'm going to look that up this afternoon.
Don't quit. Yeah.
Don't quit. Yes. I need it. I'm going to find it. So thank you.
Cool city. All right. You're welcome.
Thanks. Oh my gosh. I love hearing everything about her story. I think persistence shows up, as we were saying, in so many different ways. And to see someone who's really doing a completely new chapter and succeeding at it so beautifully is very inspiring. I end every show with a quote about persistence. And the one that I picked again today seems to fit beautifully with the content of what we discussed. And this is from Charles F. Kettering. And he said, keep on going, and the chances are that you will stumble on something, perhaps when you are least expecting it. I never heard of anyone ever stumbling on something sitting down. So I encourage us all to keep going. If you would like to contact me, I would love to hear from you. We're here with the Persistence Payoff Show every other Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. You can also reach me on Instagram at ring_thing_. And my website is ringthing.com. My email address is kimberly@ringthing.com. And please feel free to reach out to me through any of those venues. And I'd love to hear your comments about the show, any suggestions for guests, or any thoughts that you would like to share. So thank you so much. And thank you to Dr. Jacqueline Kerbick and USA Global TV and Radio for giving us this platform. Thank you.
In a world full of noise, misunderstandings, and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbick. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbick is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbick's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations.
USA Global TV and Radio, home of the YouTube Silver Creator Award, proudly presents Just the Thing for Your Ring. Introducing the patented Ring Thing. Your premium personal ring holder to keep your ring safe, nearby, and avoid loss.
The Ring Thing just got smarter. Add your logo and an NFC tag that opens to your website with one tap. Waterproof, inner padding, and now a forever business card.
Just the thing for your ring. Scan the QR code seen here to learn more about Ring Thing or place your order. Follow Ring Thing on Instagram at ring_thing_ or go to our website ringthing.com.
Get ready to wear the brand that's changing the world of media. Introducing the official USA Global TV and Radio online store. From our TV show hosts to our incredible global guests, you asked, we delivered. Rep your appearance with pride. Whether you've been on air, hosted a show, or tuned in, we have something just for you. Visit us at usaglobaltvradioshoп.myspreadshop.com and start shopping today. Check back frequently. We're dropping fresh new designs all the time. Showcase your role in our global community. These designs celebrate your voice, your story, your presence. It's more than just merchandise. It's a movement of hope, inspiration, education, and elevated listening. Head to usaglobaltvradioshoп.myspreadshop.com. Your spotlight awaits. USA Global TV and Radio. Elevate your style. Elevate the world.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbick. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.